You're listening to Coupled With, the podcast that helps you take the guesswork out of feeling seen, heard, and valued in your relationship. If you've ever felt stuck in the same arguments, struggled to stay connected, or wondered how to better communicate with your partner, you're in the right place. I'm Dr. Rachel Orlick, a couples therapist and coach, and together, we're going to make relationships make sense. Let's dive in. We treat anger like a bomb that needs to be diffused. The second it shows up, everyone's heart rate spikes. The angry person feels out of control, and the partner receiving the anger feels threatened. And the whole moment gets labeled as bad or unsafe. But what if anger actually isn't the enemy? What if it's the smoke alarm in the relationship, not the fire itself? When you're the one who's angry, it feels like your body is screaming. Something is wrong. Pay attention. You may not have the right words, but the energy is unmistakable. On the flip side, when you're on the receiving end, it feels like danger. Your nervous system instantly braces because the sharp tone doesn't read as a message, it reads as a threat. This is why anger feels so disruptive in a relationship. Two people can be in the same room, having the same conversation, and experience it in completely different ways. The angry partner is thinking, I'm fighting for us. The receiving partner is thinking, I need to get away from you. And both are telling the truth about their body's experience. And the kicker is when anger is dismissed or told to calm down before we can talk, it doesn't actually go away. It turns into resentment. It fuels the story that says, I'm too much and I'm unlovable and my needs will never be heard. That story is far more damaging than the anger itself. So let's start here. Anger is a signal, not a threat. It's the nervous system's way of saying something is off, something needs attention. And if we can start to see anger in this way, we don't have to fear it and we don't have to shut down to it. We can learn to listen. Let's get concrete for a second about how this plays out in real life. Because anger rarely shows up as some dramatic movie scene with slamming doors. More often, it shows up in these everyday little frustrations that chip away at connection. One partner forgets to follow through on a promise, and someone makes a sharp comment in the middle of a stressful day. Or maybe it's not even words, it's just the withdrawn silence, the I'm fine when everything clearly isn't fine. And from the perspective of the angry partner, the energy feels protective. The anger says, I care enough about this relationship to protest, to demand that something change. But from the perspective of the partner on the receiving end, the exact same moment feels like danger. A raised voice or a cold silence can register as rejection, criticism, or even abandonment. That same moment has two very different realities. This mismatch is what makes anger so tricky in relationships. The angry partner feels like they're waving a flag, something's wrong, please see me. The other partner feels like they're under attack and wants to retreat and defend as soon as possible. That clash, one moving forward and the other pulling back, creates a cycle of escalation and withdrawal so many couples know all too well. And the painful part is when anger keeps getting read as a threat instead of a signal, both partners are walking away hurt. The one who is angry feels silenced, told their feelings are too much. The one who received the anger feels unsafe, told their comfort doesn't matter. Over time, these ruptures build a bigger story, a story about not being lovable, not being enough, not being safe enough to show up as you are. So the pattern is like this: anger appears as protest or withdrawal. The nervous system of the other person hears danger, and both partners spiral further apart. It's not that anyone is doing anything wrong. It's just that their bodies are running different survival scripts in the same moment. And unless we recognize this pattern, anger keeps masquerading as a weapon when it's really the alarm saying, please don't miss me here. Here's the reframe that I want you to hold on to. Anger isn't the problem. Anger is the protest. It's the nervous system's way of waving a flag and saying, please pay attention to me. Something feels off here. I need help. And we've been taught to see anger as a threat, as proof of dysfunction, or even as a personality flaw. But anger itself is not the danger. Anger is the signal that something else that's more dangerous is happening. Something is being missed. So think about it like this. When your smoke detector goes off in the middle of the night, you don't rip it off the ceiling and yell at it for being too loud. You ask, is there a fire somewhere? Or is this someone just burning toast? Anger works the same way. It tells you that something is wrong, but it doesn't tell you the whole story. And here's why this actually matters quite a lot. When we treat anger as the enemy, we start to shut down the very messenger that could help us understand what's broken in the connection. The angry partner ends up being silenced, carrying resentment, and even shame for having these feelings. The receiving partner feels justified in pulling away, but loses the chance to actually know what their partner needed. Here's a shift. Anger doesn't mean someone is out of control or unlovable. It means something matters deeply enough to protest that it's not happening, that the relationship is important enough to them to make sure that they're seen. When we start to see anger in this way, not as the fire, but as the alarm, we can actually respond with curiosity instead of fear. We can stop shutting each other out and start asking, what is this signal pointing me towards? So let's put some nervous system language around this. Because what happens in these moments isn't just about bad communication, it's really biology. When anger shows up, rage or withdrawal, your body instantly shifts into protection mode. You don't get to opt out of that. It's your survival system saying, hey, something is dangerous here, let's get ready. For some people, that protective state looks like a fight, raised voices, sharp words. For others, it looks like walking out or slamming the door. And sometimes it's freeze, going numb, silent. And sometimes it's fawn, smoothing things out too quickly to avoid another explosion. These aren't really conscious choices, they're reflexes. And that's where it gets tricky. The nervous system on the receiving end of anger interprets all of those protective moves as danger. So, in the moment that someone raises their voice, withdraws, or goes cold, the other partner's body reacts like there's a fire, even if what's happening is just burning toast. And now both nervous systems are locked into defense mode. So, let's think about the smoke detector again. It's loud and it's jarring because it's supposed to be, but it doesn't tell you the size of the problem. It's supposed to get your attention so you can keep looking. That's exactly what anger does. It's the signal that something needs attention, but it can't give you the whole map. If you just rip the batteries out of it every time, you're going to miss information that it's trying to deliver. So, we often forget that anger is never meant to do the job alone. It's only one part of the emotional orchestra. Anger says, look here. But sadness says, this matters. Fear says, don't lose me. And longing says, come closer. When we dismiss anger, we silence the first note and never get to hear the full song. So instead of shutting down anger with calm down before I'll listen or waiting until it disappears, the work is to recognize it is one part of a whole system. Anger is loud, yes, but it's also incomplete. And when we treat it as a signal instead of the threat, we create space for co regulation, repair, and deeper connection. We get to hear all parts of the symphony, from anger all the way to longing. So let's put this into a contrast because the way anger is handled makes all the difference. On one side, anger is treated as a threat. The raised voice is met with withdrawal, and the slam door is met with silence. Both partners leave feeling rejected and alone. The story becomes we can't handle anger in this relationship, and resentment piles up until the moment the connection feels brittle. On the other side, anger can be treated as a signal. One partner notices the flare instead of the intensity, and instead of shutting it down, they slow down. They set boundaries around the behavior. I want to hear you, but I can't if you're yelling, without actually rejecting the emotion itself. They see the anger as the messenger, not a monster. And in that small shift, the nervous system begins to settle instead of escalate. It's all in that I just want to hear you. That difference is night and day. When anger is rejected, the cycle goes like this: protest, shutdown, distance. But when anger is welcomed as a signal, the cycle shifts to protest, curiosity, and repair. That first loop, the body clenches tighter and the walls go up. In the second one, the body begins to relax and it senses that I'm still safe with you. Here's the key takeaway that I want you to hold on to. It's not about avoiding anger altogether. That's actually impossible. And it would rob your relationship of passion and honesty. It's about how you meet anger when it does show up. Do you treat it like a fire that needs to be extinguished? Or like a flare pointing to where the connection actually needs more attention? When you choose that second path, anger stops being the end of the conversation. It becomes the beginning of it. And that one choice, the decision to treat anger as a signal instead of a threat, can rewrite the story of a relationship. So let's talk about what you can actually do when anger shows up. Because, yes, it's validating to understand the nervous system, but when you're in the middle of that argument, you need something you can actually reach for in real time. So the goal isn't to erase anger. The goal is to use it as a signal without letting it hijack the whole room. Here's a simple two-part practice. If you're the one who's angry, pause and name the protest underneath. So instead of leading with you never or you always, try to name the signal. I feel angry because I need to know that I matter. Or I feel frustrated because I don't feel like I'm being considered. Anger gets a lot more digestible when it carries the need that it's actually pointing to. Underneath every burst of anger, there's usually a softer emotion: hurt, fear, longing. And that's asking to be seen. Giving it words shifts your partner from hearing attack to actually hearing care. Now, if you're the partner on the receiving end, the work is about separating the feeling from the behavior. So you can honor the anger without letting it run wild. That might sound like, I want to hear you, but I can't if you're yelling. Can we slow down here together? Or, I know you're upset and I want to understand, but I need us to talk without slamming doors. These boundaries make it clear the emotion is welcome, the harmful behavior isn't. That distinction is what helps anger feel acknowledged instead of shut down. And it's what allows both partners to stay in the same room instead of drifting apart. This is the most important part. You don't have to get this perfect. Even pausing long enough to check in with yourself, like, what's the need that's going on underneath my anger? Or can I stay present here even if they're upset? That's already breaking the cycle. Every time you do this, you're training both nervous systems to see anger as survivable, even, dare I say, useful. And anger isn't the end of the story. It's the entry point to a deeper one if you let it be. That's how repair begins. One pause, one boundary, one choice to treat anger as a signal instead of a threat. So here it is to summarize. Anger is not the villain in your relationship. It's not proof that you or your partner are broken. Anger is a nervous system signal saying, pay attention, something here matters. And when we treat it as a threat, we miss the message. When we treat it as a signal, we open the door to repair. Think about the contrasts we've walked through today. One path, anger gets dismissed or punished, and resentment builds. On the other, anger is acknowledged as a flare for connection. And then curiosity can come in. It's the same emotion, two radically different outcomes. The difference is not whether anger shows up, it always will. The difference is how we respond to it when it does. And every response lays another brick in the story of your relationship. So, honestly, this isn't easy work. Your nervous system will still want to defend, withdraw, or shut down when anger arises. That doesn't mean you're failing, it just means that you're human. And what matters is noticing the pattern and choosing a different move. Even a small pause, a softer phrase, or a boundary stated with care can change the trajectory of the entire moment. These are not dramatic fixes. They're small, consistent acts of presence. So if anger has felt like the end of connection in your relationship, I want you to know that it doesn't have to stay that way. Anger can be the beginning of a deeper story if you let it. It can be the entry point into honesty, into repair, into showing each other that even hard emotions are survivable. And that's what secure love is really built on, the ability to stay when it would be easier to turn away. And this is exactly the kind of shift that I practice with all of my clients. Moving from understanding the why to actually practicing the how. But for now, what I want you to remember is this: you're not broken for feeling anger or for struggling when you receive it. You're human, and anger is just your body's way of saying, please don't miss me here. It's not the fire, it's the alarm asking you to look closer. If you've been nodding along during this episode thinking, this is exactly what happens in my relationship, but I don't know how to stop it, I made something for you. It's a free 7-day email course called Break the Cycle. Each day, I'll walk you through simple steps to stop the same fight from repeating and start rebuilding real connection without shutting down, walking on eggshells, or trying to do it all perfectly. You can sign up at my website. I'll link it in the show notes. It's totally free. This isn't just about communication. It's about breaking patterns that are breaking you. That's it for today's episode of Coupled With. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if you found it helpful, please share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review. It really helps more than you know. And if you're curious about how we might work together or want more resources to strengthen your relationship, head over to my website, www.drrachelorlick.com. You'll find free tools, podcast extras, and ways to go deeper. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.